Hi, I'm your professor, Dr. Stephen Haggard, and today I'd like to talk to you about information asymmetry. Information asymmetry is when two groups of people have different information sets. I'll give you an example. Were you surprised when you learned how babies were made? Turns out there was some information asymmetry there. The adults in your life knew how babies were made and you did not. Now this puts you at a distinct disadvantage. Now let's give another example here. Do you see the picture behind me of dogs playing poker? Poker's an excellent example of information asymmetry because you could see that the dogs are able to see their own cards, but they can't see the cards of the other dogs. And so they have information about their own hands, but they don't have information about what the other people are holding. Now what they can do is try to look for proxies or stand-ins for the information about what the other dog is holding. For instance, if the dog's tail is wagging, you might read into it that that dog has a good hand, but the dog might be bluffing. In other words, the dog might be lying, trying to trick you into thinking that the dog has a good hand by wagging its tail. And so that introduces the idea of bluffing, which lets us know what we already knew, and that is that people would lie to you to try to gain an advantage. And so if you have some good news that you want to signal to a group of people, you can't just tell them about the good news. You have to signal credibly. In other words, signal in a way that people will believe you. And we're going to find out that the only way a signal is credible is if it is costly. For example, in the paper by Spence, 1973, on job market signaling, the costly signal is education. It turns out that people with low productivity, it doesn't make sense for them to get an education because it's too costly for them. But if you're a very productive person, you can get an education and signal, therefore, your productivity to potential employers. And so that signal is credible, but only because it is costly, both in terms of financial amounts of money that you're spending and in terms of psychic costs, the pain and suffering one must endure during education. Okay, so anytime we have information asymmetry, the informed party has an advantage. And you can think of lots of different examples in business where different parties have different information sets. For example, we talk a lot about adverse selection in insurance. If a person is sick, they might use the fact that they know they're sick, but the insurer does not know they're sick, to take advantage of that situation to buy insurance at a cheaper rate than they would have to pay if the insurer knew they were sick. And you can also think about the used car situation. For example, Akerlof 1970 actually uses used cars to talk about information asymmetry. The buyer has less information about these cars than the seller, and the seller will attempt to take advantage of the buyer because of this lack of information on the buyer's part. And we see that over and over again, even in sophisticated examples like the offering of equity shares. So think about a manager. If a manager knows that their shares are currently overvalued on the market, they would be pleased to offer more shares so they could sell these shares for more than they are worth. And so anytime we see a manager offering up equity shares, we need to ask, do they know something that we do not? And the answer is almost always yes. And then we have to ask, is this a sign that something very bad is going on? And this situation also creates an opportunity for merchants. These are people who can tell the difference between high-quality goods and low-quality goods. Because they know the difference, they can sell the high-quality goods for a higher price, but they have to be able to certify that they are better quality goods. And one example that we see these days is in the certified pre-owned market for used automobiles. If you go online, let's just pick an automaker at random. Let's say Porsche, which is the correct pronunciation, Porsche with the E on the end. Go to their website and look up Porsche 911s. And you'll see lots and lots of them there. But then narrow the filter by certified pre-owned. You'll see that the certified pre-owned ones have a higher value. Now, how does Porsche back these up? With a warranty. In other words, that's the costly signal. The warranty is the costly signal, is the costly part that makes the signal credible. Now, what does that tell you about the other cars that are available at Porsche dealers that are not part of their certified pre-owned program? I probably wouldn't want to buy them. Now, you'll notice that they're less expensive, but they're less expensive for a reason. Now, who do you think could get more money out of a high-quality used Porsche? A Porsche dealership who could certify it as pre-owned? Or you by advertising your car on Auto Trader? Undoubtedly, Porsche could get more money for the same car. Finally, I want to leave you with this thought. If you are considering one of these situations in which there might be information asymmetry, and you don't know whether you are the informed party or the uninformed party, you can always bet that you are the uninformed party, and you should act accordingly. Be careful.